Hey there, what's going on everybody? Mecha here, or Mecha or whatever you want to call me. And today I'm going to be bringing you another video on Dragon Ball Super. And on this video we're going to be going into further detail about what is the time loop, what is a time paradox, and how it all came about in Dragon Ball Super. Now if you haven't checked it out yet, I suggest you go check out Geekdom 101's video. He has a video that he made with Laughingstock Media Mike, and they explain pretty much what the time loop is, and they explain how it's possible, not just in Dragon Ball Super, but they also compare it to how it exists and how it works in sci-fi time travel movies and such. So those guys, they understand the working mechanics of time travel and different theories, and I like the way that they used that and they applied it to what we're seeing in Dragon Ball Super. So, alright, let's get right to it. What is a time loop? A time loop is a paradox that happens when someone goes back in time and makes changes that would make it impossible for him to go back in time to begin with. In other words, it is a cycle of cause and effect, and it's a series of events that kind of create one another. So in a sense, you can say that Goku Black created himself, and a lot of people were confused when they heard Geekdom 101 say that on his channel. Now, the time loop or the time paradox here that we're seeing is that Trunks coming back in time is the cause and the effect of a series of chains or a chain of events that was triggered by him going back in time to begin with. So he is the cause of him having to go back in time to begin with. So in his channel, Geekdom 101 explains the time paradox in movies like Terminator, and he explains how it's possible. He explains how the loop is able to exist, and since, well, I do like the theory, I do like that idea, that comparison. However, it's a bit different when we look at it in a Dragon Ball perspective. You see, in movies like Terminator, there is one timeline, and every time someone goes back in time, they change that one timeline. They don't go out and explore other timelines. They don't go outside of that timeline that's in the movie. So throughout the whole series of the Terminator, throughout the whole trilogy or series, whatever you want to call it, there's just one timeline, and every time someone goes back in time and makes a change, it applies to that one timeline. Now, the reason I don't like looking at Dragon Ball with that same perspective, even though it's a good example, um, we can accept that as an explanation for Terminator because, like I said before, it's a one timeline movie or series, and they don't go out of that timeline. However, in Dragon Ball Super, we have different timelines, and we also have characters who can move in between those timelines back and forth. Now, another thing I want to point out, since Trunks uses a time machine, and every time he uses it, he doesn't go back in time to his own timeline. He goes and he creates a new timeline, or at least goes to a different timeline that he already created before by going back in time. He's not changing his own timeline. That's why he's able to go back in time freely and interact with everybody freely, including his younger self from that timeline, without any consequences. However, in this episode, where you see here, the episode where Black came back, he followed Trunks using the time ring, and he fought against Goku. He went back to a timeline. He went back in time to a timeline where he's from, a timeline where he exists. So that causes a time distortion, a distortion in time, because there are not supposed to be two Zamasus in the same timeline, even if one is in a different body. They're still from the same timeline, it's still the same timeline Zamasu. So by him being there, he is changing the course of his own timeline. He is rewriting the events that led up to his existence. Therefore, it causes a distortion in time. And how can it not? Just imagine, what if he had killed Goku in that episode? That means he would have killed himself, because if he had killed Goku, he would have nobody to steal, or he would have no way of claiming that body. Those events would never have happened. And I believe that's why the Time Ring created the Black Portal, which sucked him back to his timeline in order to prevent him from being ultimately destroyed by the paradox. So I believe that's how the Time Ring is protecting him from the events in the past changing him or affecting him. Now, the reason I'm going and making this video is I believe that there's still more information. I believe that we have not gotten all the answers yet. I believe that there's still at least one missing piece of the puzzle that would explain more, and I believe we did not have everything revealed yet. You see, since we have different timelines in Dragon Ball, now you have to wonder what happened in the timeline when Trunks did not arrive. What happened in the original timeline? Because for there to be a time paradox, for it to be possible, there first has to be a timeline without it. There first has to be a timeline that went on without time travel, and it would allow the time paradox or the time loop to be created in the first place. In those movies like The Terminator, since we don't go outside of the current timeline or the main timeline, we don't see that, so we can accept that as an explanation, as a viable explanation that there is a continuous loop where it has no beginning and no end. However, in Dragon Ball Super, we have different timelines, and we can see what happens in those timelines. So it may be revealed sometime in the future, in the near future. They might reveal. Don't be surprised if they reveal another timeline, what I like to call Zamasu's timeline, and that has actually been one of my theories since July, that Zamasu is or that Black rather is Zamasu from an unseen timeline, a timeline in which Trunks did not arrive back in time to get help from Black. So I believe that in that unseen timeline, there are still ways, even if Trunks had not arrived, Goku would still have met Zamasu, or Zamasu would still have learned about Goku. The way, basically what I'm trying to say is that whether Trunks had arrived or not, Zamasu was still destined to have learned about Goku. Now, if you look at the manga, and yes, I know the manga and the anime are kind of going two different ways, but Toriyama is the one who sent the scripts or the layout, whatever, to both Toei and Toyotaro. So they're both, even though they're both working on the anime and the manga separately, they have the main key points, the beginning, middle, and end, and all the major plot points. They still have to share that in common, because that's what Toriyama basically sent to them. So if we look at the things that are consistent within both the anime and the manga, we can draw a conclusion of what the major plot points are. And in the manga, we saw that even though Goku had not met Zamasu yet, Supreme Kai told Zamasu about Goku. Zamasu went to congratulate Supreme Kai on defeating Majin Buu, and Supreme Kai revealed to him that he did it with the help of a mortal. And Zamasu was shocked that a mortal or a Ningen would have more power than a god, and that upset him. So I do have another video that explains how it's possible for Zamasu to still learn about about Goku and make the wish and do everything he did, even if Trunks had not come in time, back in time when he did. I do have a video that explains how it's possible and the clues that give us hints to that happening in an unseen timeline, as I call it, Zamasu's unseen timeline. So, how did the time loop begin? Where did it start? Well, I believe it started back in the episode where Black came back in time when he followed Trunks and he fought against Goku. Whis sensed his ki, and by sensing his ki, he could determine that it was similar to Zamasu's, and therefore that triggered everything to happen. That caused them to go travel to Universe 10, and Goku fought against Zamasu, and Zamasu developed that hatred for humans, or increased that hatred for humans, and he went on to carry out his Zero Mortals plan. And once again, there is support, or there's evidence to support the theory that Zamasu would still have learned about Goku even if Trunks had not arrived. So I believe that originally in the unseen timeline, in the unchanged timeline, Zamasu somehow learned about Goku, maybe from Supreme Kai or from Goasu or from the God Tube or simply by time traveling. Um, I believe he became black in a way that he has not told us about yet, in a way that hasn't been revealed yet. And when he went back in time and he followed Trunks with the time ring, he was changing time. He was changing the course of time because he was back in his own timeline. And by changing, making changes, creating that black portal, I think signifies the creation of the time loop. If that event had never happened on that episode, the loop would never have begun because then Zamasu would have become black in a different way. So even though we see Beerus killing Zamasu and ending or closing the time loop, Black is still protected due to the fact that he has the time ring. And when we saw the time ring sucking him back in to his future of Trunks timeline, I believe that was the time ring's way of kind of justifying or trying to prevent a. It couldn't prevent the paradox because the paradox still happened, but it prevented Black from changing time to a point where he could not possibly exist. So even though the time loop was created, as you can see here, I believe that was the creation of the time loop. He still exists because of the time ring. Even though Beerus killed him and closed the time loop, he still went on to the future, and his past remains unchanged by the, or I should say, his presence remains unchanged by any past events, thanks to that time ring. So once again, just to try to briefly explain and go over everything, I believe that the black portal thing that we saw, I think that signifies the creation and the beginning of the time loop. I think that's what changed the timeline by Black doing that, being there and changing time, distorting time. I believe that's what caused the time loop to begin. I think that is what ultimately created the time loop. And I think the black portal is a good way to signify or show the time loop being created. So once again, even though Geekdom 101 did a great job on explaining the timeline and the time loop and how it works not only in Dragon Ball but also in other movies and other time travel sci-fi stories, even though it's a good explanation there and it is also a good explanation here, it doesn't mean it explains everything. There could still be more because of the fact that we have different timelines and we have ways to travel in between those timelines. So I'm not saying that he was wrong. I'm actually saying he was right and he did a great job at explaining it and trying to clear the confusion. But I believe that there's still more. I think that there's still a missing piece of the puzzle, and I think that there's still something that they haven't revealed yet. And I believe that would be the main timeline without Trunks coming back in time. I think that is what started the whole series of events that would lead to the time loop. And like I said, I believe the time loop was created when Black went back in time, followed Trunks, and fought against Goku and Whis sensing his key. I believe that's what created the time loop, and the black portal simply is a great way to signify it or symbolize it. But anyways, guys, I hope I was clear on explaining this. I know it's a bit confusing, but I hope you understood everything I was trying to say. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, share the video with your friends, and subscribe for more. And I apologize if there's any background noise. I'm hearing stuff out here, and I hope it doesn't go through. But anyways, hope you enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out.